Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is Professor Hall, and by popular demand, I asked you guys to do an outline. I had a video from YouTube. It seemed not to really work for people and to be kind of confusing, so I decided to take some time from reorganizing everything for our transition to distance learning and present how to create an outline. So the first thing I want to do is talk about why I have people do an outline. There are a couple reasons. Number one, to focus our ideas. The first step of doing an outline is to kind of take your topic, take all of your research, and figure out what aspects of your topic you want to focus on. So that's sort of the first step. And I'll give you an example of that in a moment. But the second step after that, you've taken your research, you've decided what aspects of your topic you want to look at, and then we create an outline to organize our ideas. I find that when people don't do an outline, and this includes myself, when you don't do an outline, then your ideas kind of end up being all over the place. So the first problem is if you don't focus your ideas before writing, you end up with two different problems on either end of the spectrum. Either you have too broad of a topic and there's way too much to write about, or you have too narrow of a topic and you're not going to have that support that you need. You're not going to get the length that your teacher's requiring. So getting your research together, making sure that you have pieces of research for each main point that you want to discuss, that's going to be important. The second step is then organizing those ideas. So figuring out what flow you want to have, and we're going to talk about a couple different types of patterns of organization that you can use depending on what your topic is. And for our purposes today, we're just going to be talking about informative essays. I'm going to do another video about how to create an outline for an argument. And it'll probably be shorter than this one. So focusing your ideas, organizing your ideas, and then the next step right before you write is creating an outline to connect one idea to the next. So using that pattern of organization to have a good flow. And then when you write, everything is on your outline. You can go step by step, paragraph by paragraph, or section by section, and add transitions to connect one idea to the next. So how do I focus my ideas? Well, that's really going to depend on you and what you've found so far in your research. But I want to give you just a couple examples of what that would look like. So a couple people are looking at the topic of foster care. Okay. Let's say that student A wants to focus in on basically the types of foster care and the types of foster care. Student B wants to look at the benefits and disadvantages, if I can type correctly, of foster care. And student C is going to focus their paper on aging out of foster care. And student D is going to focus their paper on trauma and foster care. Okay, so we have 4 different ways that a person could focus their ideas. Now, let's say that student A looks at types of foster care. There's not quite enough to describe, so they also want to cover benefits and disadvantages. Maybe that would work. But you could not have a 3-page paper that talks about trauma and types and benefits and aging out. Not at least in any real good depth, right? You're going to have a very superficial look if you try to go too broad. In contrast, if I wanted to look at foster care system and I'm saying changes to the law in January of 2020, that might be way too specific, right? So just like I couldn't cover all 4 of these things, I also don't want to have something that's so specific unless there was a big law that came in January 2020 that changed everything, and then you could talk about all those changes. Most likely that's going to be too narrow of a focus. So the first thing you want to do is focus your ideas. Then after that, you're going to organize them. So if I'm looking at, I'm going to just take this as an example. I'm looking at types of foster care. And here's basically how an outline is created. You can use numbers, you can use Roman numerals, and I am still in strikeout. Oops. There we go. So number 1 first is going to be your introduction. And you can put a few things here in a detailed outline of what you might want to put in your introduction. So typically we have a hook, and you could put what you're going to include in that. So interesting quote about being in foster care. And then we would have our thesis. Now, for an informative essay, you're going to have a neutral tone and an unbiased way of writing, but you still have a thesis that gives an overview of your paper. So here, I'm looking at a couple different types. I'm going to give an overview here. So I'm not going to write my actual thesis, but I'm just going to put what would be in my paper. So an overview of the types of foster care. There's foster care with families, with homes, private homes, group homes, privately run group homes, and possibly I might talk about juvenile detention centers. So I'm going to have an overview about that in my thesis. Then my first point in the body of my essay, my introduction probably here is going to be about 1 paragraph. And then I'm going to have the body. Now, I'm going to have, sometimes people think of the letters as paragraphs, and you can do that if you want 1 letter for each paragraph. Other times people think of the letters as sections. For me, I'm going to use sections here. So I'm going to say first, I'm going to talk about why children go into foster care, just to have kind of some background before I get into my types. And that I'm going to say is going to be 2 paragraphs. Then I'm going to talk about my first type. So children who are placed with other family members. And let's say that might also be 2 paragraphs. Then I'm going to talk about children who are placed in personal homes. And let's say I have 1 paragraph on that, and then I have children who are eventually adopted from personal homes. 1 paragraph. I don't know too much about foster care. I'm just kind of giving you guys examples here. So let's say then my next one after that in my thesis, I have group homes. That's going to be reflected here again. So children who are placed in group homes. And I'm going to have 2 paragraphs about that. And then I'm going to have juvenile detention centers and their ties to foster care agencies. And then maybe I have 2 paragraphs about that. Okay, so now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 paragraphs. And usually you'll have, a paragraph or 2 per page. So maybe I say to myself, that's not quite, if I have 9 paragraphs and I have 2 or 3 per page, that's going to give me about 3 pages, and I need a little bit more. So let's say that I add controversies regarding foster care situations. And let's say that I have 3 paragraphs on that. So another page talking about the controversies. Again, for an informative essay, you're not going to take a side. And that gives me 4 pages. And then I'm going to have my conclusion. And that's going to probably here maybe be summarizing the issue. And that's going to be a paragraph. And that's basically how you do an outline. Now, there's another way that I could do this if I wanted to have it look a little bit different. I'm going to take the same information and I'm going to actually, no, I'll give you another topic. So that was types of foster care. Yeah, sorry, I don't want to make this video too long. So let's just stay with this as an example. And instead, I'm going to make these Roman numerals each one of my main points. So this first one is going to be background. Then I'll make each one of these little letters a paragraph. So why children go into foster care, how foster care can help. Maybe I have 1 paragraph on that. How foster care can cause problems or trauma, however you want to put it. Okay, so those are my 3 background paragraphs. Then my next section is going to be types of placement. Now each letter again, children who are placed with family members. Let's say the first one is temporarily, permanent placement with other family members. Then I have placed in personal homes is already 1 paragraph long, and so is being adopted. So I'll keep that. Then I have placement in group homes. Let's say here I want to talk about as infants and toddlers. And then here I want another paragraph, children who are placed in group homes as older children or teens. Then I'm going to talk about juvenile detention centers and secure facilities. Let's say I talk about that. And then let's say I have another paragraph here about private and charter schools for foster care children. Okay. So that's my section, just all about types of placement, right? And now I can count my paragraphs. I have 1 for the introduction, 1, 2, 3 paragraphs for the background, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 paragraphs here. So total that's 12. And I probably in this situation would have the length, but let's say that I also want controversies And I will briefly cover in one paragraph the benefits of foster care. I'm going to say the benefits of private foster care, to be a little bit more specific, because it seems like that's what it's the focus here. And then the disadvantages of private foster care. And then I still have my conclusion, which is one paragraph. So a little bit more comprehensive. Now, let's say that I look at this and I'm like, man, that is a lot to cover. And I've done my focusing of my ideas and I've sort of organized them, but I'm not sure if they really connect. So if I look down at my list again, my background, I might say to myself, helping and causing problems is very similar to controversies. So I don't know that I need it up in the beginning. So maybe I kind of say, okay, I don't want to talk about that twice. And then I just want one paragraph of background. What is foster care and why do children go into foster care? And then in that one paragraph, and I make a note to myself, one paragraph. In that one paragraph, I just talk just about that topic. So then I look down here, and from here, these kind of do connect. Family members, personal homes, group homes, secure facilities, schools, that kind of goes from one to the next. Possibly I would say, do I need to talk about schools? Again, it looks to me like I would have enough length, so maybe I keep that in, or maybe I kind of cross it out or delete it. Or I say, just as a note to myself, like optional if I need the length. That's basically how you create an outline. You're just sort of saying to yourself, here's what I'm going to talk about first, here's what I'm going to talk about second, and then you have your outline in front of you when you go to write to organize your ideas and to make sure that you follow your plan. I make my outlines usually a working outline, which means that I will have things like I just showed you. Like I have, like, if I need the length, I'm going to add this, or this might be too long, so maybe cut some of it. So you can have notes to yourself like that. I'm going to give you one more example on a different topic. So let's close all that. So let's say that you are looking at medical marijuana. Let's say that that's kind of the end byproducts. And let's say that you've decided to kind of focus in on CBD oil, the byproduct aspect. It's not exactly medical marijuana, but you get my idea. So let's say that we're looking at CBD oil, and let's say that we want to look at possible uses and then also controversies. I think that that would be an okay scope to kind of have, like, the first half talking about uses, the second half talking about controversies. Okay, so what I'm going to show you here is going to be just the first part of an outline, a little bit more detailed than what I did up above. Some people like, or before rather, some people like to have a little bit more detailed outline, so when they go to write their paper, it's quite a bit easier. So first, again, I'm going to have the introduction, and I'm going to have my hook. Here I'm going to talk about, let's say I have a fact about CBD oil. Then I'm going to have my thesis. And here my thesis for my overview, I'm going to sort of give the different parts of the paper still, just as I did before. So I'm going to say something about what CBD oil is, maybe one sentence on that. Then I'm going to have possible uses of CBD oil, and then something about the controversies. Okay. So my first part in the body, I'm just here going to talk about what CBD oil is. Okay. So then I'm going to give a lot of detailed information so that I can write my paragraph quite easily. So I'm going to talk first about CBD from marijuana. Then I'm going to talk about CBD from hemp. Those are two different things. The differences between CBD and THC. Then I might talk about, let's say I talk about chemical structures. And this probably might be like just I might even put here for myself 1 to 2 paragraphs. Then let's say here I'm going to use a quote from my research, let's say, and I tell myself which one that is. So this is going to be from Young and Price, or Prince, I guess. And then let's say I have another one, a summary of Young and Prince. Then CBD from hemp. Let's say that I'm going to make a note to myself what research I want to use here. And let's say summary of second part of Young and Prince. Let's say that's a longer article that I can use in 2 different parts. And then let's say I want a paraphrase from a different source, Gould, and let's say that's on page 45. So you can kind of do that too and have a little bit more of an extended outline. This is basically what that would look like. And talking here about, giving a definition first. Then let's say my next point would be possible uses is next, right? So possible uses. Here, when we're talking about something medical, there's a lot of things with CBD oil right now that are being claimed and then other things that are being proven. So I might have like a few things about like physical benefits. And then I might have let's say a research study from Franklin, page 2. Then let's say another thing, specific physical benefit. I don't know too much about this topic, but arthritis, and I spelled arthritis wrong. Of course I did. Arthritis and a research study from Franklin. Then I want to talk about seizures, and here I have a website from the Epilepsy Foundation, etc., etc. Then I might talk about, I just put etc. there to show you guys that there would be more. Then I might talk about another, mental health benefits. Typing too fast. So let's say that I think that this might be 2 to 3 paragraphs here, and this one might be 1 to 2 paragraphs. I like to tell myself how many paragraphs just so that I can kind of keep that in mind if I have something that's going to be of a required length. So I do this even when I'm writing fiction. I'll have a novel kind of planned out, and I do that part by part But I'll say like, oh, I want 1 chapter on this, or I want 2 to 3 chapters of them, in this certain situation to kind of do my plotting. But that is basically it. You can kind of see how we're going to focus our ideas, organize them, and then also try to connect them. I would probably say, something here I would need to connect from what CBD oil is to possible uses. So I might make a note of that. But you can organize this and write it. I'd like you to have at least a little bit of detail so that I can see where you're going. What I don't want to see is just a general, which somebody turned in before for me, like number 1, introduction, number 2, body, number 3, conclusion. Like, yeah, I realize that that's going to be your general, that's how we write an essay. But I want to know what you're going to be putting in there. And if you want to add where your research is going to be, you want to make it more detailed, you can. If you just want to put, what you're going to be talking about in each paragraph or each section, you can do that too. So that's it. If you have any questions, you can let me know as always. And I look forward to reading your work. Thanks.